The iPhone 16 has some big changes that we weren't expecting to see, on top of many other upgraded specs. Let me know in the comments who out there is waiting for the iPhone 16, and don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with the latest tech. So first up, before we get into the new changes on the iPhone 16, we've got information from the supply chain that says Apple are shifting from their 5p lens to a 6p lens for the selfie camera, and they're upgrading the sensor to 24 megapixels. Now unfortunately, it's still at early stages at the moment, and this means it's probably not going to be in time for this year's iPhone 16, and more likely for next year's 17. Now back to the iPhone 16, we've got an update from Ming-Chi Kuo who says that the iPhone 16 Pro is going to be getting the new tetraprism zoom camera. Now this was previously for the Pro Max model only due to issues with internal space, but thanks to the new larger form factor of the iPhone 16s, it's now going to be included in the Pro. For those of you that didn't know, the iPhone 16 Pro is now going to have a 6.3-inch display instead of last year's at 6.1 inches. Then the iPhone 16 Pro Max is being upgraded to 6.9 inches, up from last year's at 6.7. We've also got an update that both phones are finally going to get an upgrade to the wide-angle camera, and Apple are upgrading it to a 48-megapixel sensor to help the camera perform better in low-light conditions, as well as improving the overall level of detail. Next up, we have a few rumors floating around about a OLED display for the iPhone 16, and this is a phosphorescent OLED display. To put in simple terms, the current OLEDs use a fluorescent material for the blue subpixel, while the green and red use phosphorescent, but the new OLED displays are going to have phosphorescent materials for all the subpixels, and this is going to result in better levels of brightness and performance. Now this display will of course come from Samsung displays. We've already had reports that it won't be ready in time for their latest Fold, so this means it's probably not going to be in time for the iPhone 16 either, and we'll most likely have to wait for the following year's iPhone. Next up, we've got even more reports that Apple are going to be changing the design for the iPhone 16 Pro models, and they're going with a punch-hole camera instead of the camera plus Face ID sensor that we've been seeing for the past couple of years. There's not much information on the new sensors just yet, but a few sources are now agreeing that this will be the case. Now my assumption is that the camera is going to be a punch hole, and maybe they're going to use an under-display Face ID sensor, and I'd also assume that the dynamic island is still going to be a part of the phone, but maybe the user could have the choice to turn it on or off. Now I've created these renders here to give you guys a good look at what the iPhone could look like with a punch hole camera instead of the dynamic island. Not only that, but there's also reports stating we're going to get a new capture button, although it's not going to be a physical button, and it's instead a touch capacitive button. Now there will of course be haptic feedback to create the feel of a physical button, and the button itself is going to be based around the camera for taking shots and opening the camera quickly. Now we previously had reports of all capacitive touch buttons on the new iPhones, so this could be what caused that confusion. Now the new button is reportedly going to be placed on the same side as the power button, but much further down, so it won't be replacing any of the current buttons that we've got on the iPhone. Now for those of you excited for the iPhone 16, we're now going to run through the full specs, design, and the expected pricing to help you guys decide which one is right for you. For my regular viewers, you guys have seen this, so just skip to the next video, but if you're new here, then hit subscribe now and we'll get right into it. So first up, we have the standard iPhone 16. With the standard iPhone 16, we get a 6.3-inch OLED display, but unfortunately, this is still going to be an LTPS display. The iPhone 16 is going to have a taller aspect ratio than last year, and it's going to be protected by Ceramic Shield 2. We get the new dynamic island, which covers up the 12-megapixel selfie camera and Face ID sensors. And then on the rear, we've got a 12-megapixel primary camera and a 12-megapixel ultra-wide. It's powered by the A18 chipset, and it's likely coming with 6GB of RAM and up to 512GB of storage. It's also powered by a 3450 mAh battery with 30W fast charging, and it's going to come with advanced 5G, Bluetooth 5.3, and Wi-Fi 7. Now it will of course ship with iOS 18 and is expected to launch from around $850 in September 2024. Now next up, we've got the iPhone 16 Plus. With the iPhone 16 Plus, we get a 6.9-inch OLED display, and again, unfortunately, this is another LTPS display. It's got a taller aspect ratio than its predecessor, and is protected by Ceramic Shield 2. We get the new dynamic island, which covers up the 12-megapixel selfie cameras and Face ID sensors. Then on the rear, we've got a 12 megapixel primary camera and a 12 megapixel ultra-wide. It's powered by the A18 chipset, and it's likely going to come with a choice of 6GB of RAM and up to 512GB of storage. It's powered by a 4420 mAh battery with 30W fast charging, and it comes with the advanced 5G, Bluetooth 5.3 and Wi-Fi 7. Now it of course ships with iOS 18 and it's expected to launch from around $950 in September 24. Next up, we've got the iPhone 16 Pro. Now the iPhone 16 Pro has a 6.3-inch 120Hz LTPO OLED display. It's got a taller aspect ratio than its predecessor, and the Pro is protected by Ceramic Shield 3. We get the new Dynamic Island, which covers up the 12 megapixel selfie camera and Face ID sensors. Then on the rear, we get a 48 megapixel primary camera, a 48 megapixel ultra-wide camera, and then we've got a 12 megapixel tetraprism camera with 5x optical zoom. It's powered up by the A18 Pro chipset, and it comes with 8GB of RAM and up to 1TB of storage. And it's also powered up by a 3450 mAh battery, and fast charging is still unknown at the moment, but we do expect some improvements. And of course, it comes with the advanced 5G, Bluetooth 5.3 and Wi-Fi 7. It will of course ship with iOS 18 and is expected to launch from around $1,100 in September 2024. Now finally, we save the best to last, the iPhone 16 Pro Max. With the iPhone 16 Pro Max, we get a 6.9-inch 120Hz LTPO OLED display. Again, like the other phones, it's got a taller aspect ratio than its predecessor, and it's protected by Ceramic Shield 3. We get the Dynamic Island, which covers up the 12 megapixel selfie cameras and Face ID sensors. And then on the rear, we've got a 48 megapixel primary camera, a 48 megapixel ultra-wide, and a 12 megapixel tetraprism camera with 5x optical zoom. It's powered up by the A18 Pro chipset. It comes with 8GB of RAM and up to 1TB of storage, and it's powered up by a 4500 mAh battery. As with the 16 Pro, we don't know the fast charging at the moment, but we do expect to see some improvements. Now it comes with the advanced 5G, Bluetooth 5.3 and Wi-Fi 7, and it will of course ship with iOS 18, and this one's expected to launch around $1,300 in September 24. So overall, the iPhone 16 series is looking like a great new addition, offering plenty of upgrades to the specs and a slightly new design. With everyone working towards AI inclusions in phones, I imagine Apple is going to be doing exactly the same, offering more functions via Siri, as well as more image processing using things like AI generative fill. Now of course, the new chipset is going to bring a lot more power as well as efficiency and battery life, and I think all in all, it's going to be a great phone. Now of course, given its similarities to the predecessor, I can't imagine anyone with an iPhone 15 is going to be rushing for an upgrade, but for anyone with an older iPhone or looking to get their first iPhone, then it's going to be a great choice. Now of course, we've still got quite a way to go until the official launch, but we're likely going to receive more and more leaks as we approach it, and I'll be sharing them as soon as we do, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a thing in the future.